Welcome everybody to my topic of life after death. I am going to describe in a scientific basis experiencing death and analysis. That's what we call it scientifically near death experience. I am Professor P.K. Misra, retired professor of anesthesia. I work in Ashwini Hospital and this is my presentation. We all know that man is mortal. This is known to us since time immemorial. And that is what is written in Gita. Yatasya dhruva mrityu dhruva janma mritasya cha tasmat parihara arjyarthe na tvang suchitu maharsi. But what we believe? We believe that life or Atma is immortal. You know, in Vedic literature, there is practically no reference to rebirth, or no stigmas relating to the hell or the lure of heaven. But as the Vedic mind changed and new religions came up, or people thought of other things, the doctrine of cause and effect and the transmigration of the soul was evolved as the logical necessity in order to safeguard and unsullied existence of God in the human thought. That's what our great Saint Swami Sivananda has told us. So this journeying to heaven is an article of faith, no doubt. And this we have accepted, this upward journeying proffered by all religion. This is an all article of faith, and we have accepted without demand for evidence or proof. So in Islam there is also a description of heaven and paradise. So you follow their religion. If you do this, you will go to heaven. If you don't do this thing, you will go to hell. That's what is their description. So, and they are so rigid in their followings, so people believe it very strongly. It's well known that these three leading religions, much younger to Hinduism, found it necessary to present a dreadful hellfire or narka, so to desist people from going after doing bad work and maintain social harmony. So also a joyful immortality or heaven was there as per their religious teaching. In Buddhism there are 5 steps if you to go to heaven, and in Christianity also there is description of heaven and hell. But in Indian scenario, they have changed their version slightly. Our ancient rishis, they followed reincarnation, and this action depends on you, not controlled by the God. You are your own destiny, and this is what to repeat. This is what written in Gita: birth, death, and rebirth. That's what Krishna is telling Arjuna. So, the staircase of life leads to hell or heaven. No one knows. But let's analyze a part of it. So, how life starts actually? To me, it's basically a chemical process. You know, this picture is a ovum, and there are sperms. When they join, there is a fertilization, and a child is born. And so this process is nothing but a complete chemical process, complex, continuous, coordinated chemical reaction in an entity. And this also we are being able to manipulate artificially. And this, so we do not know in which stage this Atma comes to life. And but it is now known, this self-awareness or self and surrounding awareness, when you are awake, that is possible. And this awareness is definitely in your mind. So this Atma is in your mind. Now it is also known there are 2 areas: the internal self-awareness and external or sensory awareness. And you know how this brain, it has got many cells, 880 to 200 billion cells. And the nerve cells, they act continuously, even at night, during sleep, without rest. And this is what the brain or our Atma, where it lies, that is what it works without rest. So, when we examine the brain, that we know the left side brain is normal. That shows there is activity, there is oxygen consumption. The middle brain, they shows the technical term, we call it a brain death, and the third term we shall discuss it later more. But what is death? The scientific definition is there is a cardiac death and there is a brain death. Cardiac death is we consider doctors as a clinical death, when the doctors declare a person dead in spite of all his effort to act the heart. And eventually, after some time, when the cardiac heart fails, there is no blood going to the brain, so the brain stops working after some time. Sometimes it takes a little longer if it is intervened. Then ultimately it's the brain death. So brain death is the real death, because I will describe some situations when the brain is already dead, but the heart is pumping. We can use that heart, body, lungs, other things, and use it in another person. So and this can happen when there is an impending cardiac death and we revive him by artificial means or with medical drugs and other measures. They revive. The heart comes back to pump. So, and those persons, when they come up, they describe they have a near kind of experience when they are in coma or in feeling the death. Their brain was not active, it was about to be dead, or the brain was devoid of proper blood and oxygen supply. And at that time, what was their feeling, they remembered. And this is what the scientists call it a near-death experience. So many claim to have had a near-death experience. Some have authored books. Various descriptions exist in the literature. Look at this book, Anita Moorjani, an Indian, a book, Dying to Be Me. And she journeying from cancer to near death to the true healing. She came back from death and she had a miracle in her life. And there are several other books as well. Physics of the Soul, Dying to Know, New Children. People have described their experiences. Even there is another book, Life After Death, and all these things. Even films have been made. This is the book written by a neurosurgeon, and what he has described his afterlife in various talks in different platforms is interesting to see. And movies also, Heaven is Real has been shown. When we see these films, we believe, yes, there is a life after death. But today, the anesthetists who are mainly responsible for revival of a heart, either in the operation theatre or in the casualty or outside, we have described how after the heart comes back, the patients have a stress disorder. Their mind is no more, in some of the person, the mind is no more normal as before. It depends on how much time it took them for revival. So that must be taken into account as well. And this is another interesting picture, that this is a picture of, there is a place in China, they call it a gateway to China. This is an interesting place to note. People visit and they say at the end of the tunnel there is a white light and that's the way to the heaven. So, does NDE prove that afterlife exists, or heaven, or this exists only in the earth? This we shall discuss from this our near-death experience, people with near-death experience. So scientists who have analyzed this near-death experience, and there is a definition given in the Wikipedia. A near-death experience is a personal experience associated with death of an impending death. Such experience may encompass a variety of sensations, including detachment from the body and feeling of levitation. Levitation means lifting off. And the neuroscientists have used the term NDE, a recognized entity, since 1975. If you come to the history, there is a long history, and the term was first coined in 1975. There is in the internet there is a site, NDERF, Near Death Experience Research Foundation. They put the cases of those people, those who have got experience. They put their experience in this site, and there are two persons who they recognize. There are plenty of cases described. They describe their feeling, and from there scientists have analyzed and found some interesting features also. And about August 2020, about 4,810 cases are reported, and you will be surprised. One of the cases is my experience, case number 4462. I will come to that later on. But when you analyze these 5,000 cases, there is a particular characteristic or common element we find. There is sense of awareness, there is sense of out of body experience. You go out somewhere and a certain immersion in light, and suddenly you see the whole life pass by you, not by all, but some of the persons. You also see your loved ones, and suddenly you find yourself back inside your body. You also see angels, you also see Yama, people have descriptions like that. But one interesting factor is in all cases, there is a long-term recall. This memory is retained in your brain for a long time. Even people describe precisely what has happened 50 years back when they had made such experience. So recall timing is more than 50 years. Okay. And in Christianity, their belief is the angels take the body to the Lord Jesus or the light. Angels speaking of the soul to God. This is a Christian belief. And as per the Indian belief, these Yamadutas, they took the soul away from the body. So this is our religious teaching actually that changes our mind. But analyzing this NDE, we find there are 5 stages. Stage of peace, there is a body separation, entering darkness, seeing the light, and entering the light. And 60% people experience stage 1. Clinical circumstances, under which clinical circumstances you feel? There is coma because of cardiac death, electrocution, attempted suicide, septic or anaphylaxis shock, near drowning, asphyxia, or whatever cause may be, head injury, most important. So 20% have got distressing experience, okay, and there is no correlation to religiosity or suicidal background. It is also not affected by psychopathological as in suicidals. So what are the after effects? NDEs are associated with changes in personality and outlook in life. More importantly, greater appreciation for life, higher self-esteem, elevated spirituality, greater compassion, a feeling that the brain is altered for the better, but all do not have the beneficial effect on the brain. And if you see the case of Anita Murjani, as I saw earlier, there is a magical or miracle changes has happened to her. So what are the explanation? There are 3 basic group of explanations: spiritual, transcendental theory, psychological theory, and physiological theory. We shall analyze a little of each. As I explained earlier, in spirituality, not the present day religion. This religion and spirituality are 2 different things. It supports the immortal existence of soul or mind, which would leave the death, supports life after death. But there is one thing, each NDE is different, and interestingly, the main characteristic that's linked to the religious belief. When described by the atheist, people believe life after death. Psychologically, a consequence of mental and emotional. This is description of psychiatrist based on their seeing cases in the OPD. They say this is a fantasy-based hallucination, or they have postulated various models why this is happening. They call it a dissociation model or the birth model. And Many scientific studies are going on. There is Vernier studies, Van Lommel study, the results are yet out, Aware study, and people have developed near experience scale that your experience can be graded. Thank you.